As Nathan stepped onto the porch of the McBride home, he stopped and took quick stock of himself. He smoothed his hair back, pushing at the errant lock on the crown of his head that would never quite stay down. He lifted the bouquet of wildflowers he had picked up from behind the cabin. Careful. It was not to bump the bloom. He undid the wet rag he wrapped around the stems, wadded it into a ball, and tossed it into the bush. Then, with one last check of his coat and trousers, he took a quick breath and stepped to the door. He knocked sharply, eagerness blending energy to his motion. For a moment there was silence, and from somewhere outside the house he heard the door open and close and footsteps approach. Nathan felt his heart drop a little. It was a woman's footsteps, but they were not Lydia's, and that meant only one thing. The door opened and Lydia's mother stood framed in the light from the lamp on the wall behind him. "Hello, Mrs. McBride." Nathan had expected coolness, but the cold hostility in the woman's face struck him like an open-handed slap. Nathan involuntarily fell back a step. "Is Lydia here?" he asked quickly, trying to regain his composure. Her eyes met his for a moment. Then, with a sniff of disdain, she looked at the flowers he held in front of him. Slowly, he let his hand drop to his side, feeling cheap and tarnished. "My father said Lydia's back home. She came out earlier." "Wait here," she snapped. She stepped back and shut the door firmly in his face. It was almost 2 full minutes before the door opened and Lydia was standing inside. She was just wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. With a leap of joy, Nathan stepped forward, but she was looking over her shoulder and nodded him. He stopped as he heard the sound of heavy boots on the hardwood floor. In a moment, her father appeared. He glanced at Nathan coldly, then turned to Lydia. "You get impregnated by this boy, don't come back home." "No." Father laid a hand on her arm firmly. 10 o'clock, he said. "We've had a long journey." "Yes, Papa." He shot Nathan another glance, then clapped back, then stepped back. It's like people pretending to care that they give a fuck about their kids and they don't. Finally, Lydia turned. She smiled at him, but it was faint and so fleeting as to leave him uncertain whether she had or not. As she stepped onto the porch beside him, Josiah McBride stuck his head out, jaw thrust forward. "Did you hear that, young man? 10 o'clock, not 1 minute later." The door shut loudly, cutting off Nathan's mumbled, "Yes, sir," even before it had begun. For a moment he stared at the door. He never expected bear hugs, shoulder thumping when he came to Lydia's. This? What was happening? "I'm sorry, Nathan," Lydia said softly beside him. "They're angry because I'm leaving them on my first night home." In an instant, her parents were forgotten. He stepped back for a moment, drinking in the sight of her, the pain suddenly making him wince. 10 months. How had they stood it? He swept her up in his arms, crushing her to him. "Lydia, Lydia," he whispered. "Is it really you?" "Yes, Nathan," she said softly. Her arms came up to encircle him, but it was slow, hesitant. As in his joy, he didn't notice. He stepped back, holding out the flowers toward her. She said, for the first time, really smiling. "How sweet of you. Thank you." "Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" he demanded. "I would have been waiting at the livery stable when the stage came." She looks down at the flowers, one hand brushing them. "There wasn't time to write. Even my folks didn't know I was coming." He leaned forward and kissed her softly. "Well, It's wonderful. I still can't believe it. You're here. Right here. She kissed him back. But again, it was only a half-hearted effort, and her hesitancy finally registered with him. Nathan stepped back, peering at her closely. "Let's go somewhere, Nathan," she said, not meeting him. "We have to talk." The salvage droids are busy scanning and scavenging the remains of this Republican state. Ooh, this one was ours. This was ours. The moon, in its last quarter, hung low in the eastern sky. Its faint light made barely a glimmer across the muddy waters of the Erie. The last of the barge traffic was now tied up to the docks, and the waters were still. That darted downward, its dark shape momentarily silhouetted against the moon. They sat on a small grassy knoll, a quarter-mile east of the village. The silence now lay heavy between them, both of them retreating into their own thoughts, and the confrontation had become too intense to continue. Across the water, a carriage moved along parallel to the canal. The soft clatter of its wheels and the clip-clopping of the horse's hooves were muted, as though far away and hidden in mists. Flowers lay in Lydia's lap. Nathan gave an ironic smile. Even in the semi-darkness, he could see they were already starting to wilt. How appropriate. Her fingers absently picked at the blossom, letting the petals flutter to the ground. Nathan watched her hands, loving their graceful lines and the gentleness, and yet also sensing the tension there, in her hand, in her. He reached out, putting his hands over hers, sighed, and finally turned. She could see her eyes glistening in the faint moonlight. "Lydia," he began slowly, trying to choose his way carefully, not wanting to drive the wedge between them any deeper. And yet at the same time he was fighting a low undercurrent of anger within himself. People could be so blind, so quick to condemn. "I know how your parents feel about me and about Joseph Smith. I'm not marrying your mother, and you're not marrying Joseph. Aren't I, Nathan?" "Whew, well, that was quick and direct." "Yes, Lydia. Yes, actually you are, I do believe." "What's that supposed to mean?" Came out, snappish, more sharply than he had intended. He was instantly contrite. "Hey, all I'm saying is if there was a girl that was like, I'm not marrying Jesus talent, I'm marrying you, I would probably have to say..." "That's true." He was instantly contrite. "Lydia, I've not asked you to accept Joseph. By the same token, we can't let how our parents feel about me change how we feel about each other." She pulled her hand away slowly. "How do we feel about each other?" she asked. See, because that is magnanimous writing. She's being honest. Her voice low and husky. "How do we feel about each other?" "Frustrated." No, Nathan, you shouldn't be frustrated. Frustration should have gone out the window a long time ago. She's openly admitting she doesn't know how she feels about you. He shook his head. "I love you, Lydia. I've said that over and over." He leaned forward and gripped her shoulders. "I love you." "Oh, I love you," he repeated in a fierce whisper. Why didn't you say anything about this obsession you have with Joseph Smith? Out of context, it's a pretty hilarious line to twist. But I did. That's why I wrote you the letter. After you had already been baptized. And why did I have to learn from my parents that you had returned home to Palmyra? You didn't say one word in your letter about that. Was it because you knew I would be angry with you for leaving your work with Mr. Knight, and he'd shoot her out for not telling him? He took a breath, fighting to keep the exasperation out of his voice. I already told you, I had no plans to quit work with you. I was planning to stay in Colesville until September, as you and I agreed. Then Pa broke his arm. You saw him today. He can't run a farm. What was I supposed to do? She looked away. I wrote you again once I got back here, he said, pleading for her understanding. You must have left before my letter got to Boston. And the fact that Joseph had come back too had absolutely nothing to do with your coming home. He started to shake his head, then dropped his eyes. When Joseph had announced that he and Emma and Oliver were moving to Fayette, Nathan had bitterly disappointed. He was thrilled to be close enough to Joseph to hear firsthand how the work was progressing. Then word came of his father's accident. He would have come home either way, but he was elated to know he would still be close enough to see Joseph from time to time. She pounced on his hesitancy. See, Nathan, that's just it. What is this insane obsession you have with Joseph? Does he take priority over everything we've planned? Everything we've worked for? What is that even supposed to mean? You mean because he borrowed his dad's money to buy your farm for the two of you? He's not even supposed to be here yet anyway. And you're supposed to be leaving for another year according to your parents anyway. Doing. The chin came up, her lips quivering. Over us? That's not fair, Lydia. I came home to help Pa. Do I come first before Joseph? She asked quietly. Why do you keep saying Joseph? He exclaimed. It's not just Joseph. He's been called of God. I've had that confirmed in my soul. I'm not following after Joseph. I'm doing what God wants me to do. She brushed it aside with an impatient shake of her head. Is Joseph and God going to be the ones putting a baby in my womb? Do I come first or don't I? Nathan threw up his hands. Do I come first before your parents? He demanded back at her. Your parents don't like me. They never have. Joseph is only a small part of it. It's because I'm not the son of one of the acceptable, he emphasized the word with heavy sarcasm, families of the township. Lydia looked away quickly, but not before he saw the tears suddenly well up and spill over onto her cheeks. He moved closer, drew her. Don't, no, what are you doing? If you dare touch her because you made her cry, let her stand there fucking take if she wants you, she can get comfort from you. He moved closer, drew her to him, stroking her hair with gentleness. Why, you were just a dick. And honest. I'm sorry, Lydia. Well, you know that's true. You can't say I'm sorry, but I'm just a dirt farmer, and that will never be good enough for your mother. She swung around, the sudden fierceness in her startling him. I have no idea how deeply my parents feel about Joseph Smith and this madness he started. If you continue this insanity with Joseph and I marry you, I will be totally rejected by my parents. Oh yeah, Lydia, well that's not really your or my fault. Problem. Or Joseph's. And your parents. Literally, blessed are you if your parents reject you because of something. If there's a reason, it's because they want it. My parents personally rejected me because I'd been conceived. I will not be welcome in their home. My name will not be spoken in their presence again. Nathan's head rolled back as though he had been struck. She nodded, her chest rising and falling with the intensity of her emotions. As he stared at her chest rising and falling with the intensity of her emotions, he suddenly realized that this was not just her imagination. She was repeating an ultimatum which had already been delivered to her, probably on this very night. He shook his head, stunned by the revelation. They wouldn't. Her head jerked up, eyes flashing. They would. Instantly, her voice dropped to an agonized whisper. They would, Nathan. They mean every word. The breath came out of him with a long, drawn-out sound of bitterness. Are you ready to ask that of me? Simply so you can continue to follow after Joseph? It's just a bluff, Lydia, he said. It's the only thing they can think of to hold over you. Well, it could be. And in the end, we'd hope it would be. And in the end, the test would be to test it out. So, okay. She gave an impatient shake of her head. Answer me, Nathan. Are you ready to ask that of me? I love you, Lydia. I want to marry you. I love you, she said, brushing angrily at the tears. She pulled away from his grip and stood, turning half away, staring out across the murky waters of the canal. Don't you know that? I love you. Whirled back to face him. That's not the answer. I'm ready to tell my parents that if they can't accept you, then they will lose me. She looked down at him, the challenge on her face almost fire in the darkness. But I will not do that for Joseph, Nathan. He is a fraud. He's been deceived by some terrible, evil power. And I can't believe you have allowed him to deceive you, too. Nathan stood slowly. The pain inside him as real as though he had been struck by a broadside. Lydia, I didn't know how to finish it. Will rub myself to the image of your memory at night. Felt his stomach twisting with the alternative she was jamming at him. That's what it comes down to, Nathan. I'm willing to choose you over my parents. Are you willing to choose me over Joseph? Lydia, he cried in anger. It's not just Joseph, it's... No, Nathan, she flared. Don't. Is it me or Joseph Smith, Nathan? Just answer me. Well, maybe if you take your top off, I guess. He stared at her for a moment, his mind turning. The fires of love, the fires of conversion. Whatever that's supposed to mean. That's not even a thing. It wouldn't even be a thing. What are we even talking about anyway at this point? Like if somebody told me that I guess I suppose if somebody told me anything, that would be. I don't have a single problem with you, Talon, except for sometimes you get those bug juices from the gas stations and you drink those. If you ever drink another one of those again, I just can't be with you anymore. I think I'd be on my way to the store to get a bug juice and drink it in front of them, and if they leave, goodbye. Oh, which burned the brighter in him. It wasn't fair to ask that kind of question. To demand that of him. The blindness. The bigotry. It left him wanting to strike out at people like her father. His mind flashed back to that morning when he had emerged from the waters of the Susquehanna, dripping water and filled with joy and peace. What was so evil that her parents should recoil in horror? Your answer, she finally said, in a voice that scared his soul. His Frustration welled up in him like bile. Those are not fair choices. What if I said I wouldn't marry you unless you left the Presbyterian church? What has that got to do with our love? She stepped forward. Her lips brushed his briefly, and he felt the wetness of her tears against his cheek. "Goodbye, Nathan," she whispered. She turned and walked away swiftly. He stood there, watching her hair bob, too stunned to move. The night was suddenly rent by one sharp, sobbing cry torn from Lydia's breath. Then she broke into a run and disappeared into the dark net. "Good morning, Mother," Melissa whispered. "Good morning, Mother," Melissa whispered. "Oh, good night." "Good night, Mother," Melissa whispered. "Good night, Melissa." Marianne smiled into the darkness. "Good Sabbath." Thank you. It was a good Sabbath. I know. Marianne was sitting on the edge of Melissa's bed. There was only one small window in her bedroom from which the boys could peep in to watch her. And the light from the quarter moon was so faint that she could barely make out the dark shape of the bed. There was no tree growing out. For the boys to the single story. Climb on the couch. The light from the quarter moon was so faint that she could barely. Matthew and Rebecca were both exhausted from the day's activity and the 6-hour wagon ride home from Fayette. They'd fallen asleep before their mother had fully tucked them in. Marianne had then slipped into Melissa's room and they had begun to talk quietly. She heard her daughter's breath rise and fall wearily. "I don't know, Mama." In some ways, I was deeply stirred. The story of Jesus coming to the people. Yes, it was. It still seems so. The voice trailed off. And when it first, she moved back and sat on the bed again. Yes. Melissa's hand and soul across the bed and touched her. "Does that make you feel bad, Mama?" I surprised Marianne. "Not at all, Melissa. This is something each person must come to on his or her own." I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on here. So there's a war. I don't understand. She sends Melissa's nod and relief. "You're praying about it?" "Yes, Mom." There was a long pause, then squeeze from the hand on her. "Thank you." She smiled. This was so like Melissa. Being the oldest daughter in the family was never an easy thing. It was too old. Oh God, you could say that about anyone. Anything. Being second to the middle in the family with 6 middle children was never easy. Being the youngest was never easy. Maybe that one's not true. With 2 older brothers and a father who could be gruff and filled with New England stubbornness, Melissa had learned to move carefully, walking all around an issue so as to examine its implications before deciding which way to go. If Joshua had only had a small part part of her caution. What are you talking about? Joshua had all the caution in the fucking world. Joshua's not going to come home and be treated like a pile of shit that came out of his father's asshole. He's not going to get hit anymore. You're calling him not cautious? She patted her hand and stood up. I love you, Melissa. You're a daughter that makes a mother proud. Thank you, Mama. I love you, too. She groped her way carefully to the stairs and started down. She removed her shoes so as to move as quietly as possible. She had removed her shoes so as to move as quietly as possible. She had removed her shoes. Benjamin had been in the barn when they'd arrived just after sundown. He had grunted a muffled greeting, passed on the message to a stunned Nathan about Lydia's visit, brushed aside Mary Ann's inquiries about his arm, and stomped back into the barn to masturbate with his good arm. No, he doesn't do that. He had not come into the barn until half an hour ago, while she was upstairs with the children. To her relief, he had immediately gone to bed, and now, as she paused to listen, she could hear his heavy breathing. She heaved a sigh of relief. Tomorrow they would have to talk, but for tonight she wanted to savor the experiences of the day without facing Ben's surgical barbs. Sounds like a very healthy relationship. She undressed slowly so that the cameras could follow her clothing's every move. And I'll just let you imagine it. Slipped on her nightdress. You're gonna have to stop your imagining ends with her nightdress being slipped on. Then knelt at the large oak chest against the far wall. Stayed there for some time, her lips barely moving. First there was a great outpouring of gratitude. It had been a joyous 2 days, and she had gotten the confirmation she sought. It was much broader than that. God's work was unfolding. Astonishing things were happening. It left her humbled to think of the fortuitous set of circumstances that had brought them to Palmyra just as Joseph was being directed to begin the work of restoring God's truth to the earth. Okay. I thought that he just translated a book. I thought he was kind of a fallen treasure seeker whose only redemption so far has been that he's produced this book. And then now everybody hates that book because it's boring. Then her thanks turned to the children. Each in turn was mentioned. Talia, Shaylee, Taylor, Sherston. Matthew, the joy of her life. Becca, so sweet and filled with fun. Melissa, steady as a rock. And now A lovely young woman, it made me want to say. And now into the pans of every boy that saw her, she left a rock. Nathan, dear Nathan, who saw and believed and felt as she did, and Joshua, as they did every night. Tears welled up, and she pleaded with the Lord to watch over her oldest offspring, to keep him from harm and evil, to soften his heart, so he would someday return and be reconciled to his father. Lady, you're not paying attention or listening. This seems like the most disgusting, backwards bullshit kind of thing. Every night I go to bed crying about my family. That's how my relationship is with God. So awful, man. And then her thoughts turned to the man in the bed just behind her, who had impregnated her so many times, and her pleading became all the more earnest, as a young girl should come across a puzzling reference in the Old Testament. It said a man should not plow with an ox and an ass together. She'd asked her father why such a small thing would matter to God. As he often did, instead of answering her directly, he took her to where the men were working on a section of turnpike. A yoke of oxen was hooked to a scraper, clearing and smoothing right away. He stopped the animals long enough for her to take a close look at the yoke. He pointed out how each yoke was shaped and fitted to the particular animals who wore it, so the pulling weight of both animals was evenly distributed to the load. Then he brought over the mule they used for lighter work. He made it stand beside the oxen, and stood at least 2 hands higher at his shoulder. He said no more, but Mary Ann had never forgotten the lesson. 2 hands. You're useless, Ignacio. That's why they don't want the donkey. Just hang there. Years later, after her marriage, she was reading in the Apostle Paul's second epistle to the Corinthians. What if you have a modified yoke? You have a donkey on both sides of the mule, and it fits 3. And they're lower. Wouldn't that be something? Years later, after her marriage, she was reading. It's just because, for example, if marriage is children, that you could get a piece of paper and sign it with a guy and fuck him for years and have 6 kids die and not be born and live. And on the other hand, you could look at that and say, well, that's 6 times God saying, no, you're not married. So, just saying. Why has it got to be that everybody's babies used to die? Finally concluded that while she and Benjamin, spiritually speaking, were not a well-matched band, they still pulled well together. She was reading in the Apostle Paul's second epistle to the Corinthians, and these words had leaped out at her from the page. Be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? The lesson of so many years earlier came flooding back. It had troubled her for some time. She finally concluded that while she and Benjamin, spiritually speaking, were not a well-matched band, they still pulled well together. Lady, literally, I once heard the story about this lady who literally was dating this guy, and his thing was literally, he was a great guy in every way, except for he just didn't care so much about God. Literally. Her story is that she was told many times by God to not be with this guy, because he would always be a dead anchor and a dead weight forever to her. Literally, she's with him still. Literally, not one single person in that family gives a shit about God. And especially not that guy. Literally, she's taking the words of Paul, twisting them to say, well, it doesn't matter. If Paul uses the words that it doesn't matter if I'm an ass and he's an ox. I make it work well. Is that a woman's pride? Is that what a woman's pride is? I'll fix him. And I pull off the impossible. Now, the past few months, she was no longer sure. But what she and Benjamin did not become ox and mule, or mule and ox. She thought, momentarily taken with the very question of whether she was ox or mule. But instantly she sobered. Had it come to this now? Thought frightened her. I mean, I would. If I was with a girl and our first 4 or 5 children died, I might think, maybe we're not compatible. God's trying to send a fucking message. Instantly she sobered. It came to this, had it come to this now? Thought frightened her, and so, as in all things that troubled her, she took it to the Lord in prayer. Oh God, she supplicated, wilt thou touch the eyes of his understanding, that he may see and know for himself? And if that be not possible, if he cannot accept thy servant Joseph and the work thou hast given him to do, then wilt thou at least touch his heart so it may be softened toward the work? He's a good and gentle man. No, he's not. He's fucking smacked Joshua. You fucking don't even acknowledge that he fucking smacked Joshua. Oh Lord, I seek not to bring contention and difference between us. Book of Mormon word, contention. She didn't have the Book of Mormon. And yet, dear Father, thou hast shown unto me these things are true. She stopped, suddenly realizing there had been a change in the breathing behind her. Oh, she's saying this shit out loud while he's laying there? She had not spoken out loud. Oh, no. She cried only in her heart. And now she felt Benjamin's wakefulness and his awareness of her presence. She offered a quick amen and slipped into bed as quietly as possible. She did not look at him. It was too dark to see anyway. But she didn't have to. There was no movement, no change in the steady breathing. But after nearly a quarter of a century of sharing the same bed, she knew full well he was wide awake. For several moments, the silence stretched on. Then he stirred slightly. Nathan back? He asked. Is Nathan back yet? He asked. His voice was too soft to reveal a throating kind of emotion. I thought I heard him right in about half an hour ago, she answered. But he hasn't come in. There was no answer, and after a moment she turned onto her face. How is your arm? She felt him shrug in the darkness. Martin Harris brought some kind of tea in his wine. That helps. Oh, she said in surprise. That was nice of him. Did you tell him to come and see me? His voice was suddenly blunt and confrontational. She tensed. No. You didn't tell him to come tell me that ridiculous story about the angel appearing to him? Marianne turned back over and stared up at the ceiling, fighting down back a deep melancholy that swept over her. No, Benjamin, I had no idea he was coming. Well, he did. And you don't believe it? He snorted in derision. It wasn't just him, Dan, she said slowly. Oliver Cowdery and... Don't, he snapped. I heard it all. You think he's lying? She said, incredulously. If there was one thing Benjamin felt about Martin Harris, it was that his integrity was rock solid. No, not lying. I think he's been deluded. I don't know how Joseph has done it, but it's an evil thing, Marianne, and I want no part of it. She couldn't repress the sorrow which rose from the depths of her soul. Why? If I had something that was so goddamn motherfucking amazing, that all of existence and eternity, literally from the core of my being to the inside out, omnidirectionally spun me around so that that thing's the thing now and everything else is everything else. Why is she racked with torment about this fucking thing? For God's Christ and Mary's sake, leave him the fuck alone and stop making him repeat himself about it. How about if we ever get the books published, we can buy one and you can read it then, instead of going to happy-go-lucky fan club early red carpet festival showings of the readings by Joseph Smith himself. He's not letting you go. Why don't you shut the fuck up? So fighting about his drink, you know, the more he drinks, the less he eats, the less he eats, the less he farts. I mean, no more going to Fayette. Oh, what? She couldn't repress the sorrow which rose from the depths of her soul. Why? Did you know he's going to mortgage his farm? Literally, lady, I do not believe we're there yet. It's not like this is a decade later and everybody's running around trying to get magic garments so they can be married forever. It's not like it's tomorrow if Benjamin doesn't believe forever and ever and ever in the idea of whatever it is you're even talking about. You can't even get him the book before the sorrow rises from the depths of your soul. Did you know he's going to mortgage his farm and give Joseph $3,000? He's not giving it to Joseph. Oh, wait. Do you know he's going to mortgage his farm and give Joseph $3,000? He's not giving it to Joseph, she answered wearily. He's giving it to the printer to print the Book of Mormon. Joseph won't get one bit of that money. $3,000, he repeated, as though she hadn't. It's insane. If you would just come and listen to Joseph Benjamin, she began, her voice soft with its pleading. If you would read some of the things he's translated from the gold plate. He came up on one elbow with a sharp jerk. She could feel him glaring at her in the darkness. Just get that out of your head, woman, he cried in a hoarse whisper. You won't even try to. He slammed his open palm against the bed. It's gone too far, Marianne. I should have put an end to it before now. I'll not have you and Nathan bewitched by this man like Mr. Harris has been. Bewitched, she cried. Is that your explanation for all this? Ignored the question. I put up with it till now because I've always believed a person's religion was their business. But now you're bringing the children in on it as well. Well, I won't have it destroying my family. I won't. Felt her heart plummet. What is his reason for being like this with Joshua? Oh. He's being this way about Joseph, which he wasn't until Joshua. And now he's being is he this way with Joshua? All Joshua ever did was exactly what a person would expect of him. Literally, if Joshua told his own father the story because his father forgot what happened, his father would tell him he's doing exactly correct. But he treats Joshua the same way he's treating Marianne right now here. She felt her heart plummet. He's saying, Ben, there will be no more going to Fayette. No more talk of Joseph Smith and his gold Bible placed in this house, whether I'm present or not. And there will be no more chasing after this devilry. Deviltry. 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 We no more chasing after this deviltry. Not from you. Not from Nathan. And if Nathan refuses to accept that, oh, bitch did not stand up for Joshua like that. He better not. Oh, that is not the answer Joshua, he would have said about Joshua. We slap his face too? Oh, I guess that wasn't the point. If Nathan refuses to accept that, he better not. Will you slap his face too? You just called him a gentleman, you bitch. Sorry, you liar. Sorry, you blind woman. Oh, it's only convenient when it works for your side. There was a sharp intake of breath. She instantly regretted having said it. Finally, he spoke, his voice thin and trembling with anger. Nathan has his own land now. If he doesn't want to live by the rules of this house, then let him go his own way. I can't speak for him anymore. He lay back down on his pillow. But so help me, you are my wife. I can and will speak for you. Huh. Fuck is that supposed to mean? And how in the name of Jesus Christ? Baby bassinet. Do you swing that one through the entirety of the church lunch without a single woman batting her eye? Every single one of them, every married one of them letting you get away with it. You are my wife. I can and will speak for you. That's about where we're at with the Hamas in our society today, right? Yes? And if you don't like it, then maybe you better think about moving in with Nathan. And with that, he turned his back to her, leaving her to stare upward at nothing in the dark. I think it's actually supposed to be no, you would leave, sir. You can go build another shitty shack for yourself to live in. Bring this man another beer, Joshua hollered over his shoulder at the young man behind the bar. Then he turned back to face the ferret of a man sitting across the table from him. He never particularly liked Caleb Jackson when they had worked the docks of Palmyra together. He had been shifty, always quick to select the lightest whale or prey. And Joshua more than once had suspected him of pilfering materials from the warehouse. But all of that was brushed aside now. Here was someone from home, recently so. In the 20 or so months since he had left, Joshua had talked with numerous people who had been in Palmyra, but they had merely been passing through, making no more than an overnight stop as they journeyed westward along the Erie Canal. 6 months earlier, a family from down in Canandaigua had come down to Independence. Had come up to Canada. But this was 20-some miles south of Palmyra. They'd never heard of his family. The news was pretty thin. He leaned forward eagerly. So, Caleb, what brings you this far west? Caleb was a small man with a thin face dominated by a huge misshapen nose. Joshua had always wondered if someone had broken it for him, but had never felt it his business to ask. He had clear blue eyes. They were always moving, never quite meeting one's direct gaze. It was this characteristic which made Joshua think of him as a ferret. In Palmyra he had worn a beard, an unkempt tangle of black, but now he was clean-shaven, although a day's stubble darkened his chin. The tavern boy brought 2 more beers, and Caleb grabbed the nearest one and downed the top quarter in one gulp. He wiped at the residue of foam with the black back of his sleeve. I heard there's money to be made out here. A quick furtive glance around as he spoke told Joshua as much as the answer itself. Joshua guessed that, like many other residents of Independence, Caleb Jackson was in trouble with the law somewhere. Indian territory was close enough to provide an attractive alternative for those looking over their shoulders. Well, that was all right. There was a constable in Cincinnati, whom Joshua Steed would happily avoid, for that matter. Here to tell you haven't done so badly, Caleb went on, his eyes quickly surveying Joshua's clothes. The shirt was obviously a manufactured one from back east, the pants well tailored, the boots made of fine leather, and hand tools. Joshua nodded, not trying to hide his pleasure. Let them know Joshua Steed could make his own way in the world. In a way, he wished Caleb was going back and could take the word with him. I've done all right. He paused just long enough, then asked, so how are things back home? Caleb shrugged and took another deep drink from his mug. Same as ever. Old man Benson was still bossing the crew at the warehouse like he was a general in some highfalutin army or something. I finally had enough of his mouth and just walked away. Meaning you were fired, Joshua thought, and probably for drinking. But he merely smiled sympathetically. Did you ever get to see any of my family? He asked casually. Caleb nodded. Saw your pa at Phelps Tavern a month or so ago. He broke his arm cutting down trees. Joshua didn't respond, just waited. Haven't been out there, but they say he and your brother are really making quite a farm out north of town. He grinned an evil, leering expression. I saw your sister at a town picnic, the one just younger than you. She's getting to be a real looker. The look in Joshua's eye wiped the grin away instantly. He shrugged, turning his attention to the beer. That's about it. Joshua leaned back in his chair, watching him. Ever see that storekeeper's daughter, Lydia McBride? He asked even. Caleb's eyes lit up. Oh, yeah. Talk about a looker. I used to go into the store just to stand and gawk at her. How's she doing? Caleb was suddenly wary. Fine, I guess, he hedged. I never said nothing to her. Besides, she was in Boston for high on a year. Boston? He felt a surge of relief. No wonder there had been no answer to his letters. Heard she got back again just a day or two before I left, but can't say for sure. I didn't see her. Do you have a beau yet? Startled look flashed across his face. Then Caleb looked down, staring into what was left of his beer. Well, does she? Joshua pressed. Then he laughed as though it didn't matter. I was thinking of going back there next spring to see my family. He added hastily. Thought I could call and pay my respects to Miss Lydia if she isn't hitched by then. Caleb finally looked up. You mean you haven't heard? Joshua kept his face expression. Heard what? She and your brother. He stopped as Joshua came forward, the chair legs hit on the floor with a sharp crack. You mean Nathan? Yeah, I guess that's his name. Caleb was squinting like a rat cornered by a tomcat. What about them? Barrett's head turned this way and that, trying to avoid the skewering hardness of Joshua's face. Joshua's hand shot out and grabbed his arm, pointing it to the table and causing him to wince with pain. What about them? He roared. A sudden silence over the room as several men heard. The boy behind the bar was wide-eyed and staring. Caleb swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing once in fright. They're engaged to be married. Joshua released his grip, sagging backward. When? Caleb shrugged, licking his lips. Everybody in town was talking about it. She came home from Boston to get hitched. I reckon they're probably married by now. Mr. Steed, I ain't sure this is such a good idea. Joshua whirled, swinging the bottle angrily at the man standing next to him. Then easily sidestepped the blow, then had to step forward quickly to stop Joshua from falling off the step. You're being paid, Parson, Joshua shouted, his voice slurring heavily. Stand there and shut up. He turned back to the door and battered at it with his fist. Roundy! Blast you! Open this door! There was a muffled sound inside, and then lamplight glowed in the window. Joshua stepped back. Suddenly, some sense of decorum gripped him. He hastily tossed the whiskey bottle aside and tugged at the bottom of his jacket. Not that it mattered. Jessie Roundy was one woman that if there was manure on your boots, it wouldn't make no never mind with her. The door opened and Jessica Roundy stood there, clutching at the shawl around the shoulders of her nightshirt, blinking at them in dazed bewilderment. Joshua? Who is it, Jessie? It was a muffled call. There was the crash of a chair being overturned. Then Clinton Roundy stumbled out, dressed in red long johns and clutching a shotgun. He stopped, likewise staring at the men at the door. Steed! What? You know what time it is? Steed! What? You know what time it is? Joshua stepped back and bowed low. Come to ask you for the hand of your lovely daughter in marriage. Jessica fell back a step, her eyes wide and suddenly dazed. You're drunk, Roundy said in disgust, going to the door. I'm not that drunk, Joshua protested. He stepped inside, swayed dangerously for a moment, then remembered his companion. Parson, get yourself in here. The man removed his hat and came inside. He looked first at Jessica, then at her father. Sorry, Mr. Roundy. He got me out of bed. I tried to tell him this ought to wait until morning, but morning nothing. I want to get married, and I want to do it now. Joshua swung around and groped for Jessica's hand, just staring at him as though she'd been struck by one of his wires. Look, Joshua, Roundy said, forcing a smile. I think you'd better go on home and sleep this off, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Joshua ignored him. Suddenly, he seemed cold and sober as he leaned forward, peering into Jessica's eyes. I came to marry you, woman. It's now or not at all. Will you have me to be your husband? For several moments, the soft, doe eyes of Jessica Roundy searched Joshua's face. They were filled with an infinite sadness. Finally, she nodded. Yes, Joshua, I will. She turned to the minister. Just give me a few minutes to get dressed. Talk about a case of just wanting a girl. No. There's gotta be two things here. He knows that she knows that he's what he is and loves him anyway and will put up with it. How would you like to be the girl that's waiting for the guy that you truly love to be waiting for some girl that hasn't been interested? I never thought I'd read the work in the glory